Do you love JRPGs but don't have 100 hours to spare? You don't have to quit the genre just because you're busy. Today, we're looking at 10 incredible JRPGs that you can beat in 15 hours or less, including the stunning Dragon Quest I HD 2D remake. But first up, we have the incredible Super Mario RPG remake. If you want to make the case that a short game can be a perfect game, the Super Mario RPG remake is your Exhibit A. It's got this wonderfully charming story full of humor and heart, with a cast that mixes beloved Mario characters with some fantastic newcomers. You've got Mallow and Geno, absolute standouts, and then getting to have Bowser on your side is just as fun as it sounds. Here the combat is timing based, and you can boost your damage on offense and cut incoming hits on defense by pressing buttons at the exact right moment. And this is basically where this style of turn-based combat originated. The pacing is about as close to flawless as you can find in the genre. Every area feels distinct, nothing overstays its welcome, and there's a constant sense of forward momentum to keep you engaged from start to finish. And the remake smartly trimmed the rough edges of the original while adding some genuinely great wrinkles. You have team-up attacks between party members, and you can swap out other party members mid-battle without losing a turn. My only actual complaint is the isometric platforming. The camera angle makes it hard to judge jumps, and I failed certain platforming sections more than I'd like to admit. But in a game this good, that's a minor gripe. And the length, around 10 to 12 hours, is basically the whole point of including it here. This is a game that could have easily been padded out to 30 hours and instead chose not to be, and it's better for it. Honestly, if you own a Switch or a Switch 2 and you haven't played this yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. If you have any love for Final Fantasy VII at all, Crisis Core is essential viewing, and I mean that seriously. This is the story of Zack Fair, and if you know what that name means in the context of Final Fantasy VII, you already know where this is going, and it still hits hard anyway. The writing does a great job of fleshing out the world and events that set the stage for the original game, but it adds weight and meaning to characters and moments you thought you already understood. And the action combat is fast and fun. It may not be the deepest system ever, but it has a kinetic energy to it that makes it feel great in the moment. And the DMW, essentially a slot machine that runs in the background during fights, triggers cinematic limit breaks and levels up your materia in unexpected ways. It sounds chaotic because it is, but it adds this wonderful unpredictability that keeps combat from ever feeling routine. And Reunion is a top-to-bottom remaster of what the original PSP game was, completely rebuilt visuals and frame rates that actually hold up on modern hardware. And the main story lands comfortably in the 10 to 15 hour range, and I genuinely think that's the ideal length for the story it's telling. The ending is one of the most emotionally resonant conclusions in the entire Final Fantasy series. And yes, I'm being deliberately vague, just trust me and play it. Okay, look, if you've been watching this channel regularly, you know I've been banging the drum for this game for a while now, and I'm going to keep doing it because it genuinely belongs on every list I make. Now, what makes it such a natural fit here is that the main campaign is a tight 12 to 15 hours, and there's not a single wasted moment. You're going from one massive set piece to the next with almost no downtime, and the production values are genuinely stunning. This is a beautiful game with incredible animations and a sense of scale that rivals anything the genre has to offer. And the playable roster is huge. Every character plays completely differently. You've got your spellcasters, gunners, close-up brawlers, and everything in between. My personal pick was Fairy. She fights with a whip and a crew of ghostly animals, which is the most ridiculous possible description of a combat style, but she's awesome anyway. And here's what makes this especially great for the audience of this video. If the campaign is all you have time for, that's a perfectly complete, satisfying experience. You can put it down after 15 hours and feel great about it. But if life does give you a free weekend, there's a massive endgame that opens up after the credits. Think Monster Hunter style boss runs with gear grinding and co-op. There's also a big expansion coming soon that adds new characters, new story content, and a roguelike mode. This game is going to keep giving for a long time. Simply put, I've looked hard for a real flaw in this game and I can't really find one. So put it on your list. Eternights genuinely caught me off guard. I went in with tempered expectations and came out a real fan. The Persona DNA is pretty obvious from the start. You've got a calendar system, dungeon runs, and building relationships with your party members that pay off in combat. But the developer clearly has a genuine love for this formula, and the Korean setting gives it a distinct personality you don't often see in this genre. The social side of the game is where it really shines for me personally. The cast is small, but every character has real depth and a story worth following. I found myself genuinely looking forward to the character interactions in a way that snuck up on me. But unlike Persona, combat is action-based. Here you're managing your character while using abilities pulled from your teammates, plus timed dodges and button prompts for big attacks. Early on it feels a bit rough around the edges, but once it clicks, it develops a really satisfying rhythm. The visual style is striking, a deep purple and pink color palette that gives the whole game this moody, distinctive look. It can get a little dark in places, especially when your bright glowing arm is the main light source, but the vibe is undeniably cool. There are also multiple endings cutscenes worth seeing, giving the game replay value if you want to go back, but the game itself is only 9 hours. You could sit down on a Saturday and finish this. It didn't get great reviews, and I genuinely still don't understand why. This one deserved a much bigger audience. If you've been sleeping on it, wake up. Jack Move is one of those indie games that commits completely to its vision and absolutely nails it. You play as Noah, a hacker navigating a gritty cyberpunk city to track down her missing father who's been kidnapped by the mega corporation that basically runs everything. The story is tight and punchy and keeps you moving forward the whole time. The world is built with incredible attention to detail, popping into different shops, talking to NPCs, reading the environment. It all paints a really vivid picture of the city without ever stopping to lecture you about it. And combat is turn-based with a really clever wrinkle. Noah has limited slots in her software loadout, and you're constantly juggling which abilities to bring into a given fight. It makes every encounter feel like a small puzzle to solve and keeps things from going on autopilot. You can block to reduce damage and earn extra turns, and there's a super meter that builds up for your most powerful moves. The system has a nice rhythm once you really settle into it. But fair warning, some bosses, especially the final boss, can be a little spongier than you might want. The final boss in particular, when I played at launch, felt like it went on way too long, like literally close to an hour, though hopefully that's been patched out by now. And the soundtrack alone is almost worth the price of admission. It's a fantastic synthwave vibe that perfectly matches every moment of exploring this world. The whole thing wraps up in around 6 to 7 hours. You could realistically start and finish this on a Sunday afternoon, and you'll be glad that you did. The pitch I'd give someone for Echo Generation is Stranger Things the JRPG, and then imagine it was also kind of incredible. You're a kid in a quiet small town, something very weird crashes nearby, and you go investigate. That's genuinely all I want to tell you about the setup, because the joy of this game is watching the mystery unfold. And the time period is the early 90s, and the game just gets that vibe totally right. From the locations you explore to the way the world feels like it's full of secrets just waiting to be uncovered. And the gameplay is this really interesting mix of JRPG turn-based combat and adventure game puzzle solving, and the balance between the two works really well. You'll spot enemies on the map and engage them directly, and the timing-based combat gives battles a satisfying tactical feel. And every character in your party also has their own distinct set of abilities, which gives fights a fun variety throughout. You're not just swapping out one attack for a slightly stronger version of the same thing. And the voxel art style is super charming and gives the whole world this handcrafted toy box quality. And every location has its own personality, from the local video store to your neighbor's genuinely unsettling basement. I believe it's also on Game Pass, which honestly means there's no reason not to at least try it. And the game only takes about 6 to 8 hours, short enough to finish in a couple sittings, but long enough to feel fully realized. And there's also a sequel in the works and has a playable demo right now if you want to keep those nostalgic vibes going. One game I really like talking about as much as possible is the Fuga Melodies of Steel series, because it's seriously criminally underappreciated. The premise sounds almost too weird to work. A group of children commandeer a giant tank to chase down the army that took their families, but somehow it becomes one of the most emotionally affecting JRPGs in recent memory. The tactical combat has you assigning party members to different positions in the tank, whether it be gunners, supporters, or scouting, and managing your crew across these different roles as you fight your way through enemy forces is really fun. But what sets this series apart is the soul cannon. When things look dire, you can sacrifice one of your party members to unleash a game-changing attack. And the key word here is sacrifice. These are characters you spent real time with, learned to care about, and the game is very deliberate about making you feel the weight of that choice. It's genuinely heavy in a way that most games don't try to be, but it earns it. And each game in the series runs about 12 to 15 hours, and the pacing is tight and purposeful, and never stretches itself too thin. Now, the sequel, Fuga 2, is arguably the strongest game, building on everything the first one established, but I'd recommend starting at the beginning. The emotional investment carries across all the entries. If you want a JRPG series that's going to stick with you long after the credits roll, this is the one. Now, I want to be straight with you guys on this one. Dragon Quest I is not a game you play for complex story or deep mechanical systems. It invented the template that every cliche in the genre is built on, so yes, all those cliches are here and accounted for. But here's my honest take. I'm someone who puts a lot of stock in how a game feels to be inside of. And the HD 2D treatment they've given here is genuinely gorgeous. Town hopping through this beautifully remade world has a real cozy charm to it. The team has added enough quality of life improvements as well to make something that was nearly unplayable in its original form actually feel good to sit down with. You can speed up combat, which is basically a requirement for a game with turn-based encounters this simple. One party member, first-person battles, no real gimmicks. It's stripped down to the absolute essentials. And I'll be honest, the dungeon design in the back half of the game, especially the final dungeon, version kind of wore out its welcome for me, and the Old English dialogue styling, while I understood why they did it, could be a little exhausting to read through. But for old school JRPG fans who want to experience where the whole series started, this is the best possible version of that experience. And it clocks in at around 8 to 12 hours, making it the shortest entry in the entire series. And that brevity is almost refreshing. It goes in, tells its story, and then just gets out. Lunar Lux might be the best JRPG on this list that you've almost certainly never heard of, and that's genuinely criminal. Here you play as Bella, a lunar warrior trying to stop a comet from wiping out everything she knows. The story itself is fairly lean. This isn't a game carrying a ton of emotional weight, but Bella and the supporting cast are written well enough that you end up genuinely rooting for them by the end. And where this game completely sets itself apart is the combat. It takes clear inspiration from the Mega Man Battle Network series. You pick your attack, choose a support ability to back it up, and then on defense you have to actively respond to incoming attacks in real time. To me, the defense phase is where it gets really interesting. Depending on the enemy, you might be dodging on a grid, weaving through bullet hell patterns, or blocking from a specific direction. It never settles on a comfortable routine, and it never gets old. But I feel like boss fights are where the system absolutely shines. They're long enough and complex enough that you get a feel of all of its layers, and there were a few encounters that had me completely locked in. The exploration is a ton of fun too. There's a lot of secrets and optional content tucked away all over the place, and at a certain point you get a jetpack that opens up levels in really fun ways. And the synth soundtrack here is excellent. Genuinely one of the better soundtracks I've heard in an indie game. I found myself listening to the soundtrack outside of the game itself more than once. And it took me around 10 hours to finish the game, and that was me doing some side quests and really exploring around the world. And what's exciting is there's a sequel that has been announced, so there's never been a better time to get in on the ground floor with this one. This last one is a pick that I want to frame correctly because Artist Impact is not a game you go to for a gripping story or a ton of combat depth. And that's completely fine because what it does offer is genuinely one of a kind. The visual style of this game is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's built on pixel art, but character interactions and cutscenes burst into these comic book style panel layouts that gives a completely unique feel. Dynamic, expressive, and immediately distinctive. The color palette is mostly black and white, but it has these distinct pops of green, yellow, and orange that draw your eye exactly where they want it to. I've spent a lot of time with games at this point, and I genuinely can't think of another one that looks exactly like this. And the combat is turn-based and on the simpler side. By the end of the game, I was moving through encounters pretty quickly, sometimes even one-shotting enemies, but there are some side quests throughout the game that have some real heart to them, including one involving locals in your hometown that genuinely caught me off guard. And the story here is abstract. I beat the game and I'm still not entirely sure I could give you a clean synopsis of what happened. Something about you being an agent, robots, and a planet in trouble. The vibes, however, are clear even when the plot isn't. And this was all made by a single person, which makes it incredibly impressive. And at around 5 to 7 hours, it's one of the quickest entries on this list, an easy one to slot into a slow evening. So go in expecting a weird, beautiful, one-of-a-kind experience, and you're gonna have a great time. Now those were some shorter JRPGs, but if you have time and want to dive into a 100+ hour JRPG epic, watch this video next.